You're live. Hey, everybody. I am just going to wait for a few of you guys to show up, and we are going to get started here today. I've got some great questions from a lot of you from this last week, so I want to address a lot of that today. A lot of great viewer questions, but before I get into that, I want to just say hello. If you are here, let me know in the chat, and we can get started. I want to say hi to you guys. Let me know where you're coming from. So here is what's been going on with me this week and this summer. We are 30 straight days of 90-degree temperatures, which is fantastic. So it's been just oppressively hot. Hello, Elizabeth. How are you? It's nice to see you. I am also getting ready to teach scuba this weekend, and it's almost jarring every week when I have to go in, not have to go in, but when I go in for an entire weekend, because it takes so much time and energy out of almost everything else that I do. So when I go into the shop for a weekend, I really have to kind of mold my life to either side of that. So I try to get as much done as I can before I go into the shop, and then I have to kind of recover and catch up after I'm done teaching for the weekend. Lindsay, hello. How are you? I know you've been around, but I'm hoping you're well and are treating yourself well, having a good time this summer. So here's the other thing that's going on. I am working on an update for you guys for this weekend. I don't know if I'm going to have my normal, couch sitting video. I am kind of going along this week as I'm running errands and telling you a few things that are going on with my running. But I've gone 7 days, actually. Am I 8 yet? Nope, not quite 8 days in a row of hitting my steps goal. So I'm very excited about that. I kind of put my foot down, if you will, and I'm getting my steps in. So that's good. So I'm Lindsay, working all the time, but got to save that money for Run Disney events. Yes, there is that. Elizabeth, I joined a running group this week and found training with a group was a nice change. Great. That is excellent to hear, Elizabeth. I know if I remember correctly, you were asking about that in a previous live show. That is huge. If you can find motivation through a group run, and especially if that group is extremely supportive and they welcome all comers, that's a big deal. I live in an area where it's not so much competitive. We're just very highly athletic here in the Denver area. So finding that all levels really does span quite a wide range. We've got quite fast runners and mixed in with us that like to linger, if you will. So I'm glad that you found a good group. And I'm glad that motivates you. That's huge. So I hope that continues to motivate you. Wide range from new runners to marathoners. That's fantastic. So I'm going to dive into a few of the questions that I have today. Guys, if you are just showing up, let me know that you're here. Cindy, hello. Registration week for Walt Disney World Marathon weekend. Time to make decisions, everyone. It's so true. Isn't that coming up Tuesday, right? I think so. So if you haven't been watching what's been going on with that, Walt Disney World and Run Disney events have changed their registration process. So you're going straight through the it's not My Disney Experience, but it looks a lot like it. So I think I haven't actually registered for something yet. The first registration will open on Tuesday for Walt Disney World. Tuesdays for pass holders. So that would be Tuesday the 17th for pass holders and probably DVC. And then Thursday the 19th for regular registration. I knew the 19th was in there somewhere. So Cindy, what is your decision? Will you be signing up for the marathon, the Dopey, the Goofy, the 5K? I personally will unlikely be going down this year. I'm starting to feel a little FOMO about that, though. You're going to all dopey all the time. Great job, Cindy. That's a lot of fun. I'm feeling a little FOMO, I think just because I'm seeing so many people signing up for it. It is a really hard time of year for me. We will just have come back from Wine and Dine, and we really do want to commit to Star Wars as a family. So where it's going to fit in the budget is I'm not sure that it's going to. So we have a lot of other big fish to fry before you send me down down in January for that. So unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to skip that one out. FOMO over here too, Lindsay. Yep. All I want to do is run dopey. Yeah. There's that pesky little thing like making money to do all of this. I don't know why. Okay. Colin, welcome. Hi. Thank you for your awesome videos. Oh, thank you. Really been enjoying them from a new runner's perspective. Oh, you ran Boulder. Nice. Hey, how did you like it? Where did you start? Let me know. We just ran that. We ran that too. It was my son's first 10K. And I'm signed up for Fortitude. So if you're local, Colin, they're doing another race, the Boulder series. Fortitude takes place on Labor Day, and that runs through Fort Collins, and you end in Sunny Lubick Stadium. So it's a similar race, except that it's about like a quarter the size less than that. So I think last year was the first year for Fortitude, and they were only like 8,000 people as opposed to the 46,000 people that you ran with in Boulder. So just put that on your radar. If you're going to be there, then definitely maybe we can connect up there as well. Katie, hello, welcome. Loved it. I was in the NC Corral. Briefly saw myself running into the stadium on your recap video. Sweet. Okay, you'll have to like give me a description so I can look for you. I'm going to rewatch the video. I'm going to look for it. That's awesome. That is very cool. Okay, so I want to get to some of these questions. Katie, hi. I saw that you said hello. I'm not sure if I actually said hello back. First, we're going to talk a little bit about race day nutrition and how you learn what to do. Because one of the big adages for runners is nothing new on race day. So how do you know what kind of nutrition you're going to need for race day? So this is Running with M, and they asked, working in race fueling, how often and what kinds? Now, the first thing that I have to say about fueling for a race is it's very personal. Maybe you have certain dietary needs and restrictions that you can't just, grab something off of a table and have it work for you. You might have to be very careful about what's in the nutrition and how you consume it. So it's a very personal thing, and it's almost, triathletes call it the fourth discipline. So you have swim, bike, run, nutrition, and that's kind of part of it. So while granted, we're talking much longer distances, it still applies once you start getting into runs that are over 90 minutes. Okay. So, once you start adding in those longer runs, and that you could be training for a 10K and still hit those 90-minute runs. But if you're training certainly for something longer, half marathon, anything over that, then we start looking at nutrition as part of the training. And I want to make that very clear. Once we start hitting that 90-minute mark on our long runs, or even on our midweek runs, sometimes we'll have those, especially if you're marathon training, then we want to start adding right away what kind of nutrition. So first, you have to determine what your needs are. Okay, you have to decide whether or not you can take goo, whether or not you can handle like a lot of caffeine, whether you like chewing something, whether you like drinking something. So there are a lot of things about that go into this refining process when you get to race day. So the training is the perfect time to experiment with it. Once you get about a month out from your race, that's a good time to kind of finalize it. because we don't want to switch things up too much. So if you have a 10-week training plan, a 15-week training plan, those first long runs, start adding that in. So when the options, guys, are ridiculous. Okay. It's just absolutely ridiculous. You have Goo alone is one brand name. Okay. Goo has a gel. Okay. Hang on. I've got all my Goo here. Okay. They've got a standard gel. They've got a salted gel. They've got a Roctane gel, which I believe is, oh, I can never remember. There's something added to it. I want to say it's more potassium and more caffeine. And they might have, no, they're all about 100 calories. And then they have chews, Goo chews. They have a hydration. They have the waffles. So if you like to chew on the waffles, and that's just Goo. Okay. So there are so many out there. I know Cliff has its own variety. So there's a lot to think about and a lot to kind of wade through. So I think it's very important that you first go into that knowing what your personal dietary needs are. I like Goo. A lot of people do not. Okay. A lot of people just can't stomach it. But I will say, I will take the regular and the salted, but I cannot stand the Roctane. So again, this goes back to knowing what your race is going to offer before you get to the race. So if you've been training with Goo and they offer Cliff shots, that's ever so slight a difference, and it can totally mess you up on race day. So if they're not providing what you've been training with, bring your own. Okay. So I've kind of skipped ahead here, but these are just a few of the ways you can get your Goo, your nutrition in. So when you're training within a single run, try to stick with one type of formulation. So if you're going to train with just the salted variety, try that. Then, the next time maybe try the standard variety. Or if you really want to try the high caffeine, like Roctane formula, the ultra endurance formula, try that. Some people can do this. I personally can't. It literally ruined one of my race days. But some people love it. So try to stick with one variety, and it doesn't have to necessarily be the same flavor, just to mix it up, but decide what flavors you like. And this I want to go back into the chat here for a second. If you have a preference, Lindsay, you love Goo, Buddy, you love Goo, Huma gels. Linda, read my mind, girl. Check it out. So I just found out about these. And Linda mentions this. So it's Huma Chia Energy Gel. I have strawberry and I have raspberry. They have probably 10 different flavors. So drop in the chat, any of you. Drop in the chat what your favorite flavor is, what you will avoid, what you can't stand. And maybe we can just kind of have this conversation in the chat, because especially if you're new to this nutrition thing on your long run, you can see all of the different ways. You don't like the lemonade, Huma. I saw that one. I wasn't sure. Okay. The great thing about this is that it is all natural. Something like the Goo has it's an added sugar. There are preservatives, lots of other stuff in here. It's maltodextrin is your kind of sugar carb to get you going. And with this, it's all natural. Strawberry puree, cane sugar, brown rice syrup, and it's all natural as far as I can tell. So, and then they have the chia seeds in there to kind of give it a little bit of a texture. I haven't tried it. Strawberry lemonade. Okay. So I'm really looking forward to this. I'm going to try this on my long run tomorrow, because it's literally the first thing that I've seen that has intrigued me enough to actually try it and step away from Goo. Just saying. Okay. So now that we have established that there are lots out there, let's talk about how often and how often and how many calories. Again, this is kind of a personal preference, but a good rule of thumb to start is 50 to 100 calories every hour. Okay. Most of these goos are about 100 calories, and I don't know what Huma is. This is going to be 100 calories. So this little thing, 100 calories. I will take a goo every 45 minutes. And you might hear some people say, well, I take a goo and by goo, I mean gel. I kind of revert back to that, to calling it goo, even though it's not always goo. So I always take a goo every 45 minutes. Now, some people will go by mileage. They'll take a gel or take on their nutrition every, one of the big common ones is 4 miles in a half marathon, 4 miles, 8 miles, and 11 miles. Now, that for me, depending on how I'm approaching that race, could be longer than that 45 minutes. And if it's longer than that 45 minutes, you might find yourself hitting the wall before you take that nutrition on. The other thing too is that, welcome. We're talking goo and gels and all kinds of fun stuff today. The thing about taking it too often is that it really could upset your stomach, because especially if you get into the more like the goos that have the maltodextrin in it, that have like the sugar alcohols and things like that, that can really kind of mess with you if you overdo it. I can tell you a story. My first marathon, I did the math, and I think I took 7 or 8 goos throughout the course of that race. And I'm just going to say I paid for it. We're going to leave it there. We're just going to leave it there. The problem too is that I was also taking those with Gatorade, Powerade, any of those high sugar beverages will just wreak havoc on your digestive system. So my personal feeling, and again, maybe some of you guys have figured out, hey, I can take the Gatorade and the goo at the same time, or the gels at the same time, and it's all fine. Mixing those together can actually cause more problems. If you are doing any kind of nutrition, especially things like goo and Cliff Shots, you want to take those with water, and a significant chunk of water. So maybe 6 to 8 ounces. What I will do personally, and again, this is just my personal preference and what I have taken years to figure out, is that after I take a gel, I'll take probably 2 or 3 ounces of water right away, just to kind of wash it down, get it out of the system. And then maybe half a mile down the line, 4 or 5 minutes down the line, I will take another 2 or 3 ounces just to make sure that it's kind of washing through. With things like the goos, they stick to your system. So the water helps you digest it and metabolize it faster than if you didn't take any water. So when you're out on your long run, you also have to have the water, not just the gels. The difference, though, from what I understand, folks that love the Huma, that's not necessarily the case with the natural stuff. Correct me if I'm wrong. Buddy, I see that you have a question, and I want to come back to that here in a real quick second. Start with a pre-race goo about 15 to 20 minutes before we start. One more 45 minutes into the race. And as the heat heightened in between gels, I would down a small salt packet. Salt is another thing too. That a lot of people swear by it. I can't do it. I can't do it without cramping up horribly. That was another nothing new on race day lesson that I learned when I did my Ironman. It was going to be so super hot, and everybody's saying, bring salt, bring salt, bring salt. Never trained with it. And so I did. and I was doubled over in pain. I had to get off my bike. I was cramping up so much. And that was because I had been taking, and I know a lot of people see this opposite, because I had been taking the salt. So I don't know. I mean, I was hydrating like you can't believe. I was drinking more water than I knew what to do with. But that was just one of those things. So salt is for electrolyte purposes. It's just like if you were drinking Gatorade, but without the sugar. So just, again, another way to look at this. If you want something more chewable, these look at the label. That's another thing too. Goo packets. Excuse me, guys. I'm running out of. I gotta hydrate. Another thing about the goos. Lost my train of thought. Sorry, guys. This is one serving. That's what I was going to say. This is just one serving. You down it all and you toss it. The chews, this is 2 servings, I believe. There are 4 pieces in here, which means you have 2 servings. Yeah, you have 2 servings in here. So there are 8 chews in here. So you don't want to down all of this at once. I will even take chews when I have them, and I don't typically bring them. When I do take them, I will cut that even in half, and I'll do 2 little bitty chews every half hour, because that's a lot to chew on while you're running. I personally don't like to chew on a lot of stuff. One thing that, if you guys saw my show with Laura Runs and Eats, shots of pickle juice. Yes. That, again, that kind of goes almost into a hydration issue. And let's address that in a second. So Laura Runs and Eats, we were talking about the marathon, and that's all well and good. But after a while, you want real food. Okay. So that real food issue becomes a problem if you've been out on the marathon course for 6 hours. It's like, I just really want a bagel. Is that so wrong? So when you see those, when you're out on your course and you see those food stops, and again, if you're a Run Disney runner, you know that they have sport beans now. So try that in training. If you haven't, bananas, yes, Thomas, that's exactly right. Sometimes they'll have pretzels out there, something that is real food, oranges, anything like that, that is going to kind of fill your stomach enough for you to get across the finish line. Because that kind of discomfort isn't, there's the pain of running, of, once you get that to that 20-mile mark, you're tired and it's hard, but then you get hungry on top of that. You're like, I just want to be done. So anyway, I about kissed a little kid who handed me a Hershey Kiss. Guys, I want to go back a little bit because I have some great questions. Meredith is here. Hello. Buddy asked a very good question. Where did it go? The only reason I have to go back is because I forgot what it was. Oh, darn it. Okay, hang on. Oh, any suggestions for finding a video of yoga for runners? Yes. Video. Okay, so I have a couple for you, buddy, and then I want to go back to this nutrition thing. Yoga for runners would be Yoga Glow is Laura Runs and Eats recommendation. I use Gaiam's Yoga Studio app. And I have a video of that someplace. And then Fitness Blender on YouTube. So if you go to fitnessblender.com, or excuse me, Fitness Blender on YouTube, and just search their videos for yoga, they're this couple, and they do a lot of just everything. They have a little bit of everything. So try to start there. Also, if you haven't seen, I did have a conversation with Laura Runs and Eats last week, and it was amazing. We had so much fun. Okay, so let's go back in. I want to see some advice. Chris asks, what's some advice for someone working 13-hour days, 6 days a week with no one to run with to stay motivated and accountable? Running my first half in November. Chris, that is probably the biggest challenge, is putting in the time and finding the motivation when you're already so exhausted. Are you already running, Chris? Because that's the big question. Are you already running, and how often, and all of those great things? Give me a little bit more background here. 13-hour days, 6 days a week, no one to run with, you're on your own. That's a challenge, right? If you have someone to at least hold down the fort, you don't have anybody to run with, so there's no one to meet, right? That's a hard part. Since March, you're up to 5 miles on long runs. Okay, so you have a good base. That's great. Then if you can, you might have to start letting, already you are sucking up so much time with your work, right? So take what's left and prioritize that training. And if it's huge, once you start getting into your longer runs, 10 miles or more, and it's coming up in November, you've got lots of time. I would say try to prioritize that long run. Okay. On that day that one day you have off. So yeah. So prioritize that long run, and whatever you've been doing during the week, keep doing it. Okay. The most important thing for that half marathon is going to be the long runs. If you're looking for speed, then it becomes even a bigger issue, because you're going to have to get more rest, and you're going to have to add more of those speed work miles in, and you're going to have to worry about, nutrition and hydration and all of that. The long run right now, if you can make that your priority and somehow carve out that time, and once you get to those longer runs, make that a priority for your week. And I don't know if you have the kind of schedule that changes throughout the week, or if it's consistently 6 days, Monday through Saturday or whatever it happens to be. Definitely try to prioritize that long run and just keep doing what you're doing. I hope that helps, Chris. You have a big challenge, but you do have time, because you are, if you're looking at November, that's what, 12 weeks away, 15 weeks, August, September, October. Yeah. You've got about 15, 16 weeks until November. So you've got some time. So I hope that helps a little bit, Chris, and I'm willing to elaborate. If one of the things about having a very, being the stay-at-home mom and having a very flexible schedule is that I've got somebody here, I can go out and run early in the morning. That had to become a habit. And it's one of those things that I've been kind of reflecting on a lot lately, is how that has become a habit. I can't imagine not having that 8-mile long run every week. Okay. It's just become something that is a part of my routine. Getting up early. I don't like doing it. I've been doing it. I don't always like it, but it's just, okay, I've got to just muscle through it. Once I'm out, I'll feel better. Think of why you're doing it. Prioritize the long run, and let me know how things go, Chris, because I would love to hear how things go. Real quick, back to great. I'm glad that helps. Hi, Key Lime, Maria. Good to see you. And Susie Q's here. Susie, I have that. You're my next question. Twizzlers were great during Princess Half. Sport beans work well. Gummies, a lot of times, like just real food, like gummy bears, bananas, bagels. But definitely going back, kind of my bottom line here is train with it first. Nothing new on race day. Research the race ahead of time. If you can train If you can train with what's on course, great. And if you like it, great. But otherwise, try to stay away from nothing, from anything new on race day. Hello, Jen. Nice to see you. I haven't tried BioSteel Nutrition. I have never heard of it. So I might have to research that. Thank you for letting me know about that, Lindsay. Okay, here's what's going on next. Next one, Susie Q. I Run Things asks, why are there back-to-back long runs on a weekend? Okay, Susie Q, I was really looking. Okay, I was really looking for why you would have. Let me go back here. So here's the way her plan is laid out. So she's training for Philly Half Marathon, Rock and Roll Philly, and that's in mid-September. So your training plan, and elaborate on your training plan if you would, because I really tried to figure out why it would be designed this way. So you have a long run planned for Saturday, starting at 11 miles, and then going up from there to presumably 20 miles, maybe 22 miles, maybe even all the way up. Then on Sunday, the day after the long run, you have an 8-mile run scheduled every week. I find that confusing. Who designed the training plan, and what does the rest of your week look like? Because this is really, I mean, this had me stumped, because I would see this kind of thing looking for, yes, Jen, exactly, for ultra marathons, anything over 26.2 miles, 50 Ks and so on. I also see them in some training plans for the multi-day challenges like Run Disney. Now they're reversed. Okay, so you would progress up to your long run, then take the next day as either a super easy run or as a day off. So you run so you're running every day. Monday and Friday are super light. I'm still trying to figure out. So I'm surprised. I'm surprised that you have a 12-miler on Saturday and an 8-miler on Sunday. How long does it take you to do those 8-milers? Because if you're on your feet for more than 2 hours on an 8-miler, because some people can throw out an 8-miler in an hour and a half, and that's not considered a long run. For me, that's considered a long run. Endomondo. Okay, I will have to look that up. I'm still, yeah, I honestly think that if you really feel you have to run on Sunday, then I would make it 45 minutes or less. Especially if you're up into the 12 miles. How long is your longest run? Do you know? Because so Thomas, you run 10 and then 20 on the weekend, trains you to cope. And yes, I would trains you to cope with tired legs, and I would completely get on board with that. What surprises me about that is how high mileage it is. If your longest run is 20 miles, I could go either way. On this. If you are feeling strong and you feel that after that 20-miler, you can do that 8 miles, then yes, Thomas, I wouldn't recommend it for new runners. I wouldn't recommend it for folks who've been running for, a couple of years. And that's what I personally mean by novice runners, because there's so much. The bones have to get stronger. Yes, we have lots of muscles and ligaments and things that we train. Cindy, love it. Never underestimate the importance of rest on your body. It's so true. Your muscles, your ligaments, they all get that workout. But and this is partly why I cringe when I see, okay, my first race is going to be this marathon. It takes a couple of years for your whole body, inside and out to be completely ready to take on that kind of mileage, and that there are no shortcuts. I honestly think if you feel you can manage that 8 miles, if you're not dying and, wanting to, if you can't sit down without groaning the day after your 20 miler, then maybe skip the 8 miler. If you're running every day, you have plenty of room to drop a few. Okay. I think running every day personally has led to overuse injury for me. Okay. It's your second week. If you're doing, September. So that's going to be what, 12 weeks? It's not even 12 weeks away. It was like 8 or 9 weeks away. I would keep tapping into it. Pay very close attention to your body because, it's November 18th. I'm sorry. Okay. You've got lots of time then. If you're running every day, you have lots of time and you can skip. We have this thing that when we look at a training plan, we have to do every single run on the training plan or we are going to fail. So not true. It is so not true. And I do it too. And I'm fully admitting that. Oh my gosh, I skipped a run. How am I going to do on race day? Well, we don't want to do that repeatedly, right? We want to make sure that we're still trained. So I was saying to Chris, that long run is important. That 20 miler is more important than that 8 miler the next day. And like Thomas said, okay, it trains you to run on tired legs. That is perfect if you're doing a Run Disney race, especially if you're doing the goofy, the dopey, any of the challenges, because if you're running 2 or 3 days back to back and you're spending time in the parks, that's the kind of work that will help that. It is great dopey training. And my step count in November and December of last year was through the roof because I was constantly on my feet getting myself ready. And it's all of those little proprioceptor muscles and the lower legs. You feel it when you've been standing around or kind of wandering around the mall. You feel that and you're like, why are my lower legs so sore? That's what we're training. So if you do your long run and you get up to that 20 miles and you feel pretty good the next day and you want to go out and run, that will be a benefit if you're staying healthy, if you're getting the right rest, if you're getting the right sleep. I personally, and Cindy, you hit on this too. I wouldn't run more than 5 days a week. Take 1 full day off completely. That's my personal feeling. If you feel like you have to go out, no more than a walk. Again, my personal feeling, my personal experience, and all of that. I go out for walks just to get my steps in. And then Cindy says cross training. Because running every day, that's just overuse and overtraining waiting to happen. And again, that might feel like your knees start to give out a little bit more, your ankles, your Achilles, you might end up with plantar fasciitis, hip issues, any niggling pain that starts to get in there. That would be my concern. So that's the kind of thing that I would just keep an eye on. So if you start feeling those things, attack it right away. Just say, okay, why does my Achilles hurt? And figure that out before you go too much further. Susie, I hope that helps. And I hope it didn't sound like I'm like lecturing you, because when I see like Hal Higdon, I love the guy. I think he's an amazing coach, but 6 days a week of running is a little bit much for me. I look at those plans and I'm like, that looks like I will be on the couch 4 weeks in. Again, it's a personal preference, but you can get away with running 3 days a week and still finish a marathon. It's not ideal, but 3 to 4 days a week, you can totally do that if those workouts are quality workouts. Okay. So like you were saying, house plan would put me in the hospital. Yeah, exactly, Cindy. You were saying that you have super light Monday and Friday. Skip them. What that means is that they're optional. Those are super optional. Ooh, I just remembered. So on Tuesday, I'm working on a video right now. Tuesday, I talked a lot about the speed work that happened, that we talked about speed work on Tuesday. Next Tuesday, I'm talking a little bit more about how speed work fits in with the rest of the types of runs, your long runs, your race pace miles, and then what I call them extra credit miles. Some people will call them junk miles. So in this case, Susie, those Monday and Friday super easy miles, some people might call them junk miles. I don't like that term. I like the term extra credit or bonus. Okay. Tips on cross training. It is important to mimic running. I'm gonna move on, guys. I hope that helped answer the question, Susie. The other time that a plan like that would sound good would be for a Ragnar. If you're doing a Ragnar race and you're running repeatedly throughout like 3 or 4 days. Okay, tips on cross training. And then I have another one I want to hit too. It's supposed to mimic running. You can, yes, HIIT training and lightweight lifting. So Elizabeth, let's talk about, first of all, strength training. And I like calling it strength training rather than weightlifting because of how I think about it. And I don't know how anybody else thinks about it, but I think of weightlifting as super heavy bar and a lot of work. I like to get a lot out of my strength training in a short period of time. Here are the most important things to keep strong if they're not already: hips, glutes, calves. Okay. Quadriceps muscles are, and that's the front of your leg. Okay. Your quadriceps muscles are automatically big and they want to do a lot of work. They will automatically take over pretty much anything you do. Which is why our glutes, our rear end, is developed as it probably could be. So squats, lunges, dips. I do a lot of calf raises. And if you neglect the calf raises, you'll feel that after a while. And then core. And I talk a lot about this in my video on Thursday with Laura, what that, she called them the corset muscles. If you haven't seen this video, guys, about halfway through, we start talking about the transverse abdominis. And it's this one long muscle that goes from the front all the way around to the back. And the way she describes it is a corset. Everybody's got it, men and women. But it's this wraparound muscle that is the deepest muscle in your core. And if you think about sucking it in, like you feel like someone's pulling from the back on your navel. Okay. So if this is your belly, someone's pulling backward toward your spine, pulling that navel toward your spine. That is the most important muscle to start with for runners. You can do all the crunches you want, but that's not going to help you as much as getting that transverse abdominis. It's so hard to find, but once you find it, then you're aware of it. Strength training, here's how I do it. So I run Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. My Monday run is typically easy, maybe a little bit of speed work in there. My Wednesday is a speed day. Friday is my extra credit mileage. And then Saturday is my long run. I take Sunday off. Tuesday and Thursday are my dedicated cross training days. I have been doing, up until recently, the Runner's World 9 exercises for runners. And I did a video about this a while back, and it was out of the Star Wars Run Disney event guide. And at the end, at the back, toward the back, they have some kind of exercise program, right? And this was what was back there. And I did that for probably 2 months, twice a week. It was amazing. It helped me so much. You can also, there's run specific cross training. So strength training that is specific for runners. A lot of alternate leg work. So doing squats, both legs at the same time, isn't as effective as doing one-legged lunges, okay, because we alternate things, okay. And with that, you can also do cross training that is not runner specific, that is cardio based. So if you were to go swimming, okay, what you do is strength training. Yeah. So that's just a good place to start. Again, if you were to go to Fitness Blender, they have tons and tons and tons and tons of, and just search strength runners on their channel, and they will have plenty for you. If you have access to a TRX trainer, which those are the straps with the handles, and you just have kind of a pivot point, that'll do it. Any of one of those workouts will do it. I rely very heavily on my TRX trainer because it's body weight. Again, when you're getting into core work, planks, push-ups, planks, 5 minutes. You don't have to overdo it. And lower weight to body weight. I always start with body. In the sets, especially since you are, we are in a running sport. It's a repetitive sport that over and over and over and over and over again. Higher reps, body weight. Okay. That's going to help us more than, 5 squats at, 250 pounds. Okay. That's not the kind of thing we necessarily need first. Not to say that you can't do it, but that's not run specific strength training. Okay. So does that help? Side planks. Yuck. Yes, I agree with you. So what else is happening? You guys are awesome. I love that you guys are talking to each other. For strength after a race, I do foam rolling or yoga instead of a more cardio workout. Yep. And that is a very good point, Meredith. So here's what I want to kind of touch on with that. After a race, general rule of thumb, and I'm just going to throw this at you, 1 day for every mile of recovery. That doesn't mean non-running. But for example, if you just did a half marathon, it's going to take you a couple weeks to fully recover from that. In my personal recovery after a half marathon, I'm doing super light running or no running that first week. I don't run for probably 3 or 4 days at all. I might walk, but it would be a light walk and very short. My first long run isn't until 2 weeks after that. Okay. So I start adding in light, easy mileage, probably a couple minutes faster, or excuse me, a couple minutes slower than my normal training pace, just to get my legs moving again, because we don't want to stress things out. Yoga and body weight. Well, yoga is great for right after. You can do yoga. It's great. But with the strength training, again, add that in later after recovery. Try not to do that like within the first few days. Your body's really recovering. So if you're training for a 10K, or excuse me, if you've just finished a 10K and you're recovering from that, you got about a week before you're back to hopefully what your pre-race health fitness was. I always keep, Jen says, I always keep a recovery stick in my car. You're so smart. Post races, when you don't have a foam roller nearby, I keep one at my desk at work and another in my suitcase too. I have all of my foam rolling stuff right over there. Actually, I have my foam roller and my MB5 ball downstairs. I've been much better about foam rolling, but not as good. I need one of those for Paris. So Yeah, Meredith, I've seen you have one of the big foam ones, right? So, Trigger Point Therapy sells that grid, okay? And it's about this big, okay? It looks like these, okay? But it's just like that wide, okay? So it's about this wide and it's hollow. So grab one of those, solid. Yes, solid. Yours is solid with, yeah, get the roller that's about this wide and it's hollow. You can drop that in or a stick. Rolly is about to get jealous. Yeah, but once you go trigger point, you may not go back. Just saying. Anyway, you guys. Okay, training for a 10K in September, Disney half in January is a good plan to start incorporating gels into long runs greater than 45 minutes. Colin, I would say an hour to an hour and a half. You probably don't need anything until you hit that hour. So that's my personal preference. 45 minutes, by the time you actually take it, it will hit your system and then you're done. So if you eat a little bit beforehand, then take one at about 30 to 45 minutes. You probably don't need to take another one. So I always, like, when I'm doing my long runs, I figure out how long it's going to take, and I start with 90 minutes. At 90 minutes, I bring two. I typically only take one, but I always have an extra on hand just in case, because maybe I drop one or maybe something happens. I don't know. But I always bring one extra for my training runs. So if it's an 8-miler, I will bring 3, okay? Because that takes me about an hour and 45 minutes. And I'll take one at 45 minutes and one at maybe an hour and 20 minutes. So I'll kind of shoot it a little bit on the shy side of 45 minutes so I can get that one extra in so I can finish my run strong. But greater than 45 minutes, yes, yes, obviously. But once you get to it, it's more like 60 to 90 minutes. Hope that helps. I'm about to wrap things up here, you guys. Any other questions? This has been amazing. Okay, I do have one thing that my buddy Yip was asking about, and I don't know if you're here, but prepping for race day, okay? If anybody has a race coming up in the next couple of weeks, I hope this helps, but I'm definitely going to hit this again in another video. Prepping for race day. He asks how much sleep, pre-race warm-ups, what to eat, all that good stuff. So the way I look at race day, it's a well-supported training day. Okay, you've done the work. I consider hitting the start line at the beginning of your victory lap. Okay, so that's how I go into race day. That's my little mental game that I play with myself. The night before a race, you're not going to sleep. Okay, who has gotten a really good night's sleep the night before a race? Because we're going to have to talk. It's never happened for me. So try to get a really good night's sleep 2 or 3 nights before. Try to get your sleep, bank up your sleep, a few days before, okay? Because that night before a race, not only are you probably going to have to get up early, but you're going to be anxious and ready to go. So try to get a good night's sleep the night before or a couple nights before. When you get to race day, nothing new on race day, right? We always preach this. So try to do what you've been doing. However, if you have a longer race and you know you're going to be at the start line for a long time, you might want to put something in your stomach. Okay. I don't know if you eat breakfast. I typically I'm a fasted runner. I don't eat before I run. I have my coffee. That's it. But I typically don't eat before I run. I will on race day. I will grab a waffle or a half a bagel or a banana. And I will eat that before, probably at least an hour and a half before I hit the start line, just to make sure that there's something in my stomach before, as I'm standing around waiting. So I've kind of topped off those glycogen levels. So that's typically what I will eat. And then my channel is restaurant. Oh, yeah. I should probably say that, huh? I'm going to get back to that. Meredith, if you want to find Meredith, she is at Rice Runner. Meredith Rice is at Rice Runner. Yes, no, I have no problem with you doing that, girl. That's perfect. And I am so far behind on your videos. I have been watching them, but I'm like way back and, after Princess. So a couple of other things about race day, what to eat. We talked about how to sleep. Pre-race warm-up. If you are used to doing some kind of, quick jog, dynamic warm-ups or stretching, do that. But obviously you're not going to do that once you hit the start line. So do that before the race starts. Good question, Colin. When would you suggest eating your last real meal the day before the race? The night before. I mean, I go at least 12 hours. More like 14. So I'll have an early dinner the night before, but it's going to be something lighter, grilled chicken or turkey, light on the cheeses. If anything, I don't do pasta. I don't do the carb loading thing. There's some mythology with that. Don't eat roasted garlic the night before. For me, it's jalapenos. Okay. Just saying. So I will do a light grilled turkey and some kind of cooked vegetables. And then maybe rice or potatoes, roasted potatoes. So I will either roast squashes or, roast beets are great, yams, anything like that. That's how I kind of manage my pre-race meal. Then the next morning, I will the glycogen levels with a banana and probably half of a protein bar, or a banana, half of a bagel with some kind of protein on top of that, usually a peanut butter of some kind. How late is too late to eat that bagel with peanut butter or whatever? Again, that's kind of personal preference. And it's going to depend on your race, Meredith. So if you're training for a 10K, you might do an hour and a half beforehand. But if it's longer than that, maybe just eat smaller chunks up to an hour before. You want to make sure that everything is all digested and ready to go, because you do not want to start your race cramping. Again, I know for a fact that if I have dairy within 24 hours of a race, I will end up with side stitches. So this can all be part of your training, like we were talking about with nutrition. Just figure out what your breakfast is beforehand. Again, nothing new on race day. Meredith, thanks. I just know the bagel. I like to sleep as much as I can. And yeah, I mean, I love the portability of a bagel and a banana, but I really like the GU or the GU Stroop waffles. And I know a bunch of different companies make these now, but they're the flat cake waffle, right? They're about this big. That's actually a little bit too big. They're about this big, and they're kind of a crushed waffle with some kind of syrupy goo inside, and they're really, really yummy. I love them right before a race. Yeah, they're super good. If it's a big race, and that's the other thing. If you get nervous before a race, Jen says, and Jen is a quilting jewel. So if you guys know Jen from the Joyful Miles channel, and she's on RunDisney.com or Team Run Disney and all of that. So say hi to Jen. And Jen is awesome. Okay, but that's a different story. Hey, did you get your envelope, Jen? I'm hoping you did. Nerves are usually all over the place and can't eat much prior. So quilting jewel, Jen takes Tailwind. You just got it. Good. I'm so glad. I can't tease that right now. I can't. Gotta wait. Okay. I've got to sign off, you guys, because there's another group called the Run Experience, and they do their live video at 1. Yes. Meredith is running Disney Paris. So, you liked it. You like tailwind. I'm going to try that. Guys, I think that is everything. Oh, I didn't talk about the warm-ups. Warm-ups before race day. Try to keep it similar, but don't overdo it. Okay, so if you're going to go run as a shakeout before your race, keep it super slow. Like almost like you're running in place and you're just kind of like, you're not going anywhere. Okay, just warm up the muscles in your legs. You're not stretching everything out. And then do your normal dynamic stretches before going into that. Okay, guys. Hey, if you're signing up for Walt Disney World Marathon weekend, that is coming up next week. This weekend, I have an update coming up for you. I really, 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 really hope. Then Tuesday, we're going to talk more about the different types of runs outside of speed work. And then I have no idea what's going to happen for the rest of this week because next week I'm leaving to visit my family at the end of the week, and it's going to be crazy, but we're going to have a great time. So, guys, that's it for me today. Thank you guys so much for being here. This was fantastic. Love you all. And we will see you next time. I have no idea when I'm going to be live, but you will find out soon enough. I have no idea when I'll be live again. Guys, that's it for me today. Thanks so much for watching. Go find your awesome. Happy running. Happy summer. I can't turn it off. Okay. No, really. Bye.